One way to ruin a photo shoot is to overlook something simple that you should have caught before you even picked up a camera. Let's talk about my pre-shoot checklist on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there everybody, welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions right here on Adorama TV. Today's question comes from Daniella R, and she wants to know, do you have a pre-show checklist that you look at before a shoot? What are the most important things that you check every time so you don't forget? Thanks, Daniella. That's actually a really good question. Now, if you do a lot of photo shoots like I do, you find that there are plenty of things to think about once you're taking pictures. But the stuff that really comes back to bite you are the seemingly little things that you forget about beforehand. Now, I do keep a list in my phone that I can refer to before every shoot. I'm not talking about the big things that you plan for ahead of time, like bringing the right gear and checking the weather. These are things that I check once I'm on location and it's getting close to go time. So I'm going to go through them today. Hopefully they're going to help you out as well for your own checklist. Now, some of them are going to seem obvious, while others are settings that you might change for a shoot and then forget to switch back for the next one. And then there are a few personal things that I like to do that just help me to stay focused so I'm not distracted when the action starts. First is the essential stuff that keeps everything in sync and prevents avoidable problems later. Go ahead and set the time and date on all of your cameras. This is actually more critical than you would think, especially if you use multiple bodies with different lenses on them. Having the time synced up means that when you copy all of your images into the computer, you can sort them chronologically no matter which body they were created on. That's going to make your culling a lot easier. To do this, I like to connect my cameras to my Mac and use Canon's EOS Utility app to sync them down to the second. If I can't use the app because I'm on location or just don't have my computer with me, I'm going to pull up any site that shows ticking seconds and then set the time manually on each camera. Oh, and don't forget to check the time zone and daylight savings time settings. I don't usually change my time zones when I'm just going to be traveling in the US because it's not more than 2 or 3 hours difference. But if I'm going to be overseas, I'll set the time because the date could actually be wrong when I'm too far away from home. The next one is obvious, but make sure you've got cards inserted in your camera. We've all been there at least once when you're about to make a great shot and then you realize you didn't put the SD or CF Express card back into your camera. And of course, make sure that those cards have enough space on them. I format mine in camera before every shoot, but only after I make sure that the older images that were on there have been backed up in multiple locations. Of course, make sure all your batteries are fully charged. That includes your camera, your flash, if you're using one, and of course, anything else that might have batteries in it. Now, this is something you should have done before you got on location, but it never hurts to double check. Now, something that has happened to me more often than I care to admit is that my lens hoods get bumped and they wind up out of position. Those petal-shaped hoods have to be on a very certain way or you're going to get some serious vignetting in the corners of your images. When it's happened to me, I didn't really notice it until I was editing my pictures later, and of course there was nothing I could do about it then. What I do is I use just a little bit of gaffer's tape so that the hoods don't move, but the pieces of tape are so small that they lose their stick after a while and they need to be replaced. I check that before every shoot. I also check the lenses for dust and dirt on the glass and give them a quick wipe down if needed. Don't forget to do the same on the viewfinder as well. While that doesn't actually affect your image quality, the viewfinders tend to get really dirty and can make it hard to see what you're photographing. And then, depending on what I'm shooting, I make sure I have easy access to information about the shoot. If you're a wedding photographer, for example, that might be a shot list that you made with your clients. When I shot a lot of sports, I always had the team rosters easily accessible, so I knew who was who. As a concert photographer, I like to have the band's set list at my fingertips so I know what song is coming next, along with any notes I might have to remember surprise moments that are coming up in the show. I used to just keep that info in the photos section of my iPhone, but a few years ago, I started making it the lock screen. That way, during the show, I can just pull up my phone and immediately see what I need without having to unlock and fumble around to find the set list. You would be amazed how much easier that makes things in the middle of a shoot. Okay, the next section of things I check are camera settings. You don't need to worry so much about the ones that you personally never change. It's the ones that you do change that you want to check. For example, I shoot RAW files exclusively, but if you ever switch to shoot JPEGs for a particular client, then you need to make sure you set it back after the shoot. It only has to happen to you once in your life that you shoot JPEGs only instead of RAW files, and you really don't want to make that mistake ever again. Make sure you check your exposure compensation settings as well. If you shoot any kind of auto mode, you might have dialed in a plus or minus exposure correction, and you probably want to change it back to 0 before your next shoot. It's also not too hard to accidentally change that setting without realizing it. Same thing with your flash, don't forget that. Make sure that flash exposure compensation is back where you want it. Then you should check crop mode. If you've gone to the internal 1.6 crop, for example, make sure you turn that off so you're back using the whole sensor again. That's something you could go for a while without ever even noticing. And while you're in there, make sure you're on the shutter mode that you want to be. There are reasons to shoot electronic shutter and reasons to shoot mechanical. I'll put a link at the end to a video that I did about the different shutter modes, but if that's something you change regularly, make sure that you check it before you start shooting again. And then there's drive mode, which is how many images you can take in a burst. With the mechanical shutter, you'd probably feel or hear the number of frames you're shooting every second. But silent electronic shutters, they're not so easy. One time I photographed an entire event accidentally at 30 frames a second without even realizing it. I was on silent shutter and I just didn't feel it, I couldn't tell, and the problem was I wound up with over 8,000 frames to go through when I didn't need anywhere near that amount for what I was photographing. So put that on your checklist as well. It's definitely on mine. A couple more things you'd need to double check are your picture style and white balance settings, but only if you shoot JPEGs. If you're shooting RAW files, which you know I highly recommend, then those settings can be changed in post-processing. But if you're only shooting JPEGs, then you should be updating your white balance as needed for each shoot. And you might also dial in some picture style settings like contrast, clarity, filters, or even black and white. So make sure you set those before you make your next images. Hey, quick sidebar while I've got you. I want to remind you that if you like these kinds of videos and have a question you want me to tackle, just go to askdavidbergman.com and submit that form on the site. I'm always looking for new real-world questions that other photographers might be wondering about too, and I just might pick your question to answer right here on a future show. And if you want to keep in touch with me, I have a site of links to all of my social media, my free email list, my videos, and some discount codes and affiliate links. Those are all at thedavidbergman.com. You'll find them all in there. Also, I would appreciate it if you take a second to go ahead and hit that like button under this video, subscribe to Adorama's YouTube channel, and hit that bell icon for notifications. It really does help us out and lets us keep producing free educational content for you every single week. Okay, I know this seems like a long checklist so far, but you might not need to check all of those camera settings depending on how you work. It's really just about making sure, as I've said a few times, that you didn't move something from yesterday's shoot that you don't want applied to today's. So for me, after I check all of those things, something I like to do is take a picture of my hand. Yep, my hand. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's really just a test shot, and I always have my hands with me, I hope. I actually did a video way back when for my 2-minute tips series about why I use my hand. It's called Hand It To Me, of course, and I'll put a link to it in the description below. But once I know the camera is working and set up exactly how I want, there's one more thing that I try to do before every single shoot. I'm totally serious about this and actually have it on my list. I retie my shoelaces. I wear sneakers when I'm shooting concerts, and the last thing I want is to trip over my laces when I'm running around and trying to get the shot. It might seem like a small thing, but a tight double knot gives me peace of mind and saves me from embarrassment or injury. Oh, and if you really must know, I also use the bathroom before every concert. Maybe you didn't need to know about that one. So that's everything I double and triple check before I photograph a concert. Again, there's a lot more that goes into pre-production long before getting on location, but once I'm there, here's a reminder of all of the things that are on my list. I start by setting my time, date, and time zone. I make sure I've got my digital cards inserted and they're formatted, or at least have enough space for the shoot. I check that my batteries are fully charged, confirm that my lens hoods are on correctly and taped down, clean the glass on my lenses and viewfinders, and I put the set list on the lock screen of my phone. Then the camera settings I check are RAW or JPEG, exposure compensation on both camera and flash, crop mode, electronic or mechanical shutter, drive mode speed for burst shots, and then white balance and picture styles if I'm shooting JPEG only. Lastly, just to make sure I'm in the right headspace for the shoot, I take a test shot of my hand, tie my shoelaces, and empty my bladder. So Daniella, yes, I do have an actual checklist. Doing all that ensures that I can go into the shoot with a clear mind and body and can concentrate on making the best images possible. What about you guys? Do you keep an actual checklist that you look at before a shoot? What did I leave out? Are there other things that you check right before you start taking pictures? Let me know down in the comments below. And like I said earlier, here's a link to a video I did about mechanical versus electronic shutters. It's actually about the third option, electronic first curtain, but I talk about all three modes and why you might choose one or the other. So that's it for today, and I hope it helps. Thanks so much for watching Adorama TV, and I'll see you next time right here on Ask David Bergman.